We are going live.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Gann. I'm a partner and chief social officer at Mechanism. We're a creative agency. I oversee a ton of influencer marketing campaigns. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Gann. I'm a partner and chief social officer at Mechanism. We're a creative agency. I oversee a ton of influencer marketing campaigns. With that, let's dive in, and I want to start with a story. March of 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren moved into this retail space, open for business. The company was the Van Dorens that was California. They made them in that store, sold them there, and that very first day of business. What does this have to do with influencer marketing? Well, when we think about influencer marketing, Instagram models, TikTokers, talking products, cool talent, emerging talent, latest platforms, latest trends. I like to get back to that original story. Skate endorsements with Stacy Peralta for $300 to ride their shoes exclusively in contests. Quite a deal in hindsight. It's Stacy Peralta go out there for $300 to ride their shoes exclusively in contests. Quite a deal in hindsight. I like to break it down. Stacy Peralta go out there for $300.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the Influencer Marketing Expo. Thank you so much, Ismail, for inviting us. I'm Ricardo.
I'm Kristen.
And this is Kristen. And we're the founders of Paid Exposure.
Influencer Marketing Expo. Thank you so much, Ismail.
So just to kind of give you a little bit background on us, on how we got involved in influencer marketing in the first place. So we actually own an apparel company. And every time we kind of dealt with influencers, we saw that they're very inexperienced and, they're unprofessional because they just have the lack of entrepreneurial skills. Like every time we talk to someone, right?
It was impossible. it was almost virtually impossible. It took forever just to go back and forth. And
exactly. So it's because they don't know what they're doing and they just don't have any background. So it's highly fragmented. It's very difficult, right? It's very time consuming. So that's kind of how we got involved because we saw the problems in with our own experience. So we said, let's try and solve this.
Let's try and fix the problems that we were having trying to deal with influencers because it was a nightmare.
Exactly. So let's give us, just a quick thing of what we think influencer marketing is. So to us, influencer marketing is really just is where people who can provide valuable exposure get paid to promote their businesses by basically borrowing their trust with their followers, right? That's all it really is. It's always better to have a third party kind of promoting your brand or products. And it's really just an evolution of sponsorships because of social media. It allowed you it basically empowered people to capture people's attention. One of the biggest things that's made influencer marketing popular is the ad blockers, because the influencers are actually the content. And so, you don't know when that's going to pop up. So, these ad blockers, it's almost making it impossible. We almost see advertising as invisible, whether you're on Facebook or anything else, they actually force you to see it on your feed. Another thing is it's a cost-effective way of using influencers or actually getting your brand promoted, by borrowing people's trust and using their, user-generated content. It just allows you to kind of capture more eyeballs and more easily too. Before you would need, a crew of photographers and setting up appointments, photo shoots. And now you could just easily get people because this is what they specialize in. And also it's the engagement, right? The engagement has become very popular. I'm kind of assuming that most people watching this already know the influencer industry. So I'm going to talk very general about it. And, you see this trend that's going from mega to micro influencers, right? Because of the engagement rate, just when you hit 100,000 followers, it tends to plateau. And anything above that, it tends to kind of decrease. So people with 1 million followers actually have less engagement than someone with 10,000 followers,
Right.
which can go up to like 10, 20%, which is, huge. So what most of these brands are doing are saying, hey, why don't we just get more micro influencers that equals 1 million followers and get the higher percentage engaging with our brand?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Your reach is farther.
Yeah. And actually, more and more nano influencers are becoming even enticing because their engagement is much higher and the credibility with their followers is much stronger. And so they're really influential. So that's kind of what's happening there. So as we're going through this, like, what the hell is the cause of these problems? Like, and after really looking into it, all of it, all the problems in the influencer industry stem from the influencers, right?
I mean, and we don't mean to say it in a bad way that the problems are all yours and you cause all the problems. However, that's just the way it all boils down to.
Yeah, and here's why. This is what I mean. So for influencers, what can they complain about with sponsors? The only thing they can complain about is if and when the sponsor pay at the agreed amount.
That's it.
That's it.
So
on time.
If
Sorry.
the sponsor pays you on time, what you agreed, what can an influencer complain about? Like the sponsor did what they were supposed to do.
Exactly. But if you look at the sponsor side,
they have a laundry list.
Yeah.
Of things
when are you going to post? How much is it? What services? Is it on Instagram, Facebook? If it's on Instagram, is it stories? Is it live? Is it IGTV? Like,
are you going to do it?
There's so many things.
When are you going to do it?
Exactly. So that's the first thing. Philosophically, we realized, like, all right, let's start remedying the cause instead of trying to remedy the result, which is what's happening out there now. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we focused on. So everyone here, assuming with experience, knows that influencer marketing is a very time-consuming process, and there's really nothing that exists that actually help promoters, right? That's why there's like low conversion. There's just no trust. I don't know these influencers. There's no transparency, credibility, or accountability. And it's just time consuming because a lot of the time is actually wasted on negotiating the promotions to like finalize it.
Yep.
Right?
How much is it going to cost? Well, how much what if I want a video instead of a photo? How much is that going to cost? And how much is this going to cost? It just goes on, and you waste time, weeks, months sometimes going back and forth with emails and whatnot.
Right.
And so it takes a long time.
Yeah. Most transactions now takes weeks or months to finalize. There's just really no business tools that actually help the influencers, proactively monetize their followers. So our screen share kind of went out. Hello?
Well, I guess we'll just keep
talking. Yeah, so we'll just keep talking. So it all stems from the influencers, and that's what you have to understand. So if you really want to fix the issues, it's all stemming from there. So we got to help that out.
Because they don't have any tools.
Yeah.
To help them monetize their followers.
And because it takes so long, that's why less than 18% of influencers are actually able to monetize consistently. They're usually sitting there waiting and all that stuff, right? So you can't see the screen, but
there you go.
There it is. So first question is, how do you build that trust? Because it's actually trust that is missing when it's why transactions take so long. Because you don't know them, you don't believe them until they build the trust with you. You don't know if they're going to run away with your money and things like that.
Because that's actually happened to us with our clothing line. We've sent people hats and shirts and all kinds of gear and paid them, and all of a sudden nothing happens. They never did any promotion. They never acknowledged us ever again after that. It was like, thanks for the free stuff, thanks for the cash, see you later.
And this happens a lot in the industry. So there's no trust.
No trust, no accountability at all.
Yeah, on both sides. Right. Because influencers, they're getting the same thing. They're being told that they're going to pay, or they're just going to do links.
Do the promotion and then we'll pay you.
Right, and then they don't get paid.
Then they don't get paid.
Or they change the agreement. Like, wait, can you actually do this on the beach instead? And then it becomes a whole new ballgame. So now they want more money, and then you're not willing to. So it goes back and forth. And what's amazing is, after we were trying to figure out the solutions to the problems, we saw that agencies are actually an important part of the ecosystem.
Huge.
Yeah, because they know both sides. They know the problems of the sponsors, what they're looking for. They know the pain points of dealing with influencers. And when they talk to influencers, they know their pain points with dealing with sponsors. So that's when we said, hey, you know what? Agencies have already built that trust on both sides. They have trust with their sponsors
and the influencers.
Exactly. So when you have trust, that leads to more transactions. So we said, hey, why don't we start focusing more into the agencies, because they already have that trust. One of the biggest things that influencers help, like we mentioned, all the problems stem from influencers, and agencies almost help influencers into becoming entrepreneurs, because they know that the sponsors are the clients, not the followers. And they're basically doing the job for the influencers. And, we've learned when we say transforming influencers into entrepreneurs, this is just a better understanding. When we say everything stems from the influencers, it's kind of like tattoo artists. So influencers are just service providers. But I don't go to a tattoo artist and say, hey, can I get a tattoo? And then telling them how to do the tattoo. I don't draw it for them. I don't all of a sudden start telling them what kind of ink to use or what machine to use. I just say, I want this size, black and gray, go.
It's same goes with like a hairstylist. You don't go to a hair salon and say, okay, I want my hair to look like this, and you send them a pic and you give them a photo. And then you tell them what type of bleach or dye or coloring that they need to use and how to cut it on what kind of angle. You just trust them.
Right.
So that's what, sponsors have to do with influencers. They have to trust them.
Yeah.
They know how to engage with their followers.
But that's not what's happening.
Right.
Influencers are asking sponsors. Basically, they're not mastering their craft. And that's why agencies' involvement becomes so important. But let's talk about the problems for the agencies.
Well, and sponsors do the same thing too. Sponsors actually go back and tell people like what they want and what they expect. What they expect
they shouldn't
an
do that.
to do.
Right.
Sponsors should simply just give a suggestion. Hey, can you do this on the beach? And then allow the influencer to be their own creative self.
Exactly.
That's because, like I said before, the influencers know how to keep their followers engaged.
Yeah, more and more followers. Sponsors, agencies know this, to leave the creative to the influencers. So let's go back to the problems for agencies. So what are we doing now? A lot of agencies do things internally. It's very manual. They keep their own set of
Excel spreadsheets.
Maybe there's a database. Maybe they use some other platforms and stuff like that. But it's all fragmented within the company also. So what happens with that? It actually takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of your time, because you have to search for the right influencer. So you have to figure it out. You have this Excel spreadsheet. Let's say you accumulated, 100 influencers. Now you got to figure out all right, who's doing what and what niche and what age. So a lot of times you try to kind of segment that, right? With the age and things like that. But, 5 years later, they're not the same age anymore. You forgot to go back. So, you'll put the birth date and stuff like that. So you got to put, basically formulas to try and automate some things, but it's very manual and it takes a lot of time. So, that's why it takes weeks and months.
Yeah, and then the same thing with those manual systems. They never know when someone is available. Are they willing to do it? Do they want more money? There's so many questions. This is why it still continually takes so long to do.
Right. So the second problem is they really just have a very limited number or inventory of influencers, right? Basically, you always try to get all the information you can from the influencer, because you're building that trust. So you don't want to waste that. So you try to keep them in a folder, in a back file, right? Make sure you can contact them then again, and just in case you have a sponsor that fits. So but you're kind of limited. Every time you get a new influencer, well, now you have to educate them also, and this and that, and so now you got to build that trust with them again, because you don't know if they're going to run away with your money or the sponsor's money, which is even worse, because you're the middleman. So those are the kind of things that hurting agencies. And another thing is it's just unscalable. Right? The only time agencies make money is by direct involvement, right?
Yeah.
You either have a sponsor and an influencer, if you don't have one or the other, there's no match, there's no money.
Right.
Right. So, it's very hard to scale. Like, you always have to be the one chasing the sponsors and getting the influencers. So you're always there. And because it takes weeks or months, that's really going to hurt you, like, I mean, you're taking so much time. So now you hire more. So now your expenses for more people, go up. And then, so it's not really scaling, right? So those are kind of the problems that we saw with agencies. And we're like, well, how do we fix that? So there's actually 3 major benefits that we saw that we can provide for agencies on paid exposure. So one of the biggest things, like, we didn't really want to waste too much time, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to email us and ask us since we're live. So the first step is efficiency. Our platform allows agencies to be able to manage the communication, the payment, tracking, all that stuff. And we're actually able to finalize transactions within 24 hours instead of weeks or months. So you can actually use our platform to just basically take over your influencer marketing process. We've made it so that you shouldn't need any other tools to track everything. It's almost everything is automated.
This is the only tool you should ever need as an agency.
You will know exactly who is going to be promoting and when and what sponsor and all that stuff.
And what they're supposed to be doing and when they're going to do it.
Exactly. Like, everything is there.
Everything is there.
The next thing, how do we fix the inventory problem? So we've learned that a lot of agencies are keeping inventory of influencers, right? Let's, for example, one agency has 100 influencers and another agency has 100 influencers. When they go on our platform, we believe it's just helpful for everyone to have a shared database of influencers. Just helps everyone out. So now, instead of having 100 here, 100 here, well, now they have 200 together that they can go up to sponsors and say, I have 200 influencers. And because of our platform and because the agencies basically vet these influencers already, they already created the trust, efficiency comes into play even more, right? And now you can actually have a higher inventory of influencers that you can work with for sponsors. So you can get bigger sponsors. So as we grow more and more, the more influencers on a database, the more inventory for you to approach bigger sponsors.
Or even if a random sponsor comes onto the platform on their own, not through an agency, and they want to pick one of your inventory, one of your influencers of your inventory.
Yeah. That's actually the scalability.
The scalability part. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jumping a little ahead.
Yeah. So we allow you to scale your business. Like I mentioned before, the only time you can actually make money with influencers and sponsors is when you connect them. When that doesn't happen, you don't make any money. So what we've done is give you the incentive. Like, why would you want to share your influencers? A lot of agencies are very like, oh, these are my influencers, but they're not even constrained to you. Like, they're actually not, there's no contracts that they can only deal with you. So what do these influencers do? I'm on the 50 platforms. I'm with 5, 10 agencies because they got to eat. So they don't know when you're going to hire them again. And you know that. That's why you don't, tell them that it's limited, that they only work with them. Unless you're like a mega influencer and stuff like that. Sometimes they kind of just want to deal with one. They do all the work, but it's a lot of work, right? And until you find that matching sponsor, you're not going to make any money. So what it does is basically allows you to scale by educating your influencers the way you already are and letting them get their own sponsors. You're able to scale your business because now you're making money without having to put in any effort.
At all. So if an influencer gets their own sponsor, not through you, the agency, you still get paid on it.
Exactly. So what we've done is, like, you make a commission on your team of influencers by simply adding them to your team on the platform, whether it's a sponsor that sees our platform or an influencer getting their own using the platform, because it makes sense for them to use the platform because it just makes it more efficient. You'll get an automatic commission, whether it's another agency, another sponsor, or someone else, because you're the one educating them to be a better influencer. And that's why we say, hey, we should reward that. And by putting all these three, it's actually an ecosystem that helps each other out. Influencers are helping agencies, agencies are helping influencers, sponsors are getting involved. So it's really a great ecosystem where everyone's actually, monetizing more efficiently. And that's pretty much what we wanted to talk about. As far as the agency feature goes, we didn't really get too deep into the platform. We're actually hoping we're going to get some questions and answer session. But if there's anyone out there that kind of wants to learn more, just email us, info@paidexposure.com or ricardo@paidexposure.com.
Or Kristen at paidexposure.com.
Yeah, and you can see right now the platform, by the way, is actually free for these agencies.
It's free for everyone.
Yeah, on a on limited time basis right now, the agency feature is free. So anyone can go on there right now and start using it. We're still fixing a lot of things. It's just an MVP right now. We just started this agency feature very recently.
Like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we've been getting some great responses from it. It's really a great way for all the agencies to kind of come together and help each other out and really monetize and really scale your business, because now you're making residual revenue, recurring revenue by educating them. Because we believe in the idea that it's better to, instead of giving a man a fish to eat for the day, teach them how to fish so they can eat for a lifetime, right? So by educating these influencers to be able to do it on their own, it actually helps you kind of, basically they'll survive on their own. And then, you just basically benefit from teaching them, So that's kind of how that platform works. Kind of looking for questions out there if there's anyone there, but that would be great. Yeah, and that's kind of what we've learned from the influencer marketing industry. It's just very highly fragmented. And all the platforms that's kind of coming out, they're all doing the same thing. They're just kind of
influencers have to bid for a sponsorship and hope they get it, or
it's still the remedy for the result,
not
the cause. And so we have a different mindset on how we deal with it, and we just kind of figured out that working with agencies instead of against them, because most of the platforms are working to kind of get rid of the agencies. But we saw the benefit with agencies.
Of working with them and helping them.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Ismail, the founder of the Influencer Marketing Expo, and he brought up the thing about the Facebook collabs manager. And so when you look at that, look at TikTok and all that stuff, they have, almost each of them had direct access to get involved with influencers and stuff like that. So a lot of, influencer marketing agencies and influencers are going, whoa, are we even going to need agencies anymore? Let me put it this way. Every company can go into Facebook ads and create their own ads, create their own campaigns and promotions. Yet marketing companies still exist. Why is that? It's because they're still helping them, It kind of still helps them kind of with, getting the transactions fulfilled. So screens are going crazy. Yeah, you got any questions for me, Ismail? Yeah, so I don't think it's going to take out the agencies. I think it's more beneficial when you work with the agencies.
Yeah.
And with our platform, I think having everyone...
Actually, no, that was a very...
What's that?
Are you there?
Oh, you're gone again.
You're gone again.
No, that was a very amazing presentation, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I know, within 2 hours.
It's all him.
I said that was a very amazing presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah, what a way to kick up the conference. I'm behind the scenes, just DJing everything. So yeah, if you guys have any idea how this will work, let me explain this to you. Just 1 second. I'm having some issues with this.
Yeah, there you go.
Any idea how this will work? Let me explain this to you.
story. In March of 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren moved into this retail space, open for business. Their company was the Van Doren Brothers. 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren. They made them in that store, sold in there, retail space, open for business. Their company was the influencer marketing. Well, influencer marketing. They made them in that store, sold in there, space, open for business. TikTokers, talking products, cool talent, emerging talent, the latest platforms, the latest trends. You know, I like to think that. Talent, emerging talent, the latest platforms, the latest trends. You know, I like to think back to that original storefront because that business was the Van Doren rubber talent, that emerging talent, which is worth $11 million. You know, I like to think back to where they are today. That original storefront because that business was built the Van Doren rubber talent. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Gams. I'm a partner. Hey everyone. Builds the Van Doren rubber YouTuber brand integration, done several. Principles of influencer marketing. And so I'll show how they did it right and why it's still relevant today. Because platforms change, tactics change, influencers change, but principles don't. What do I mean by that? What are those principles? They did it right. I'm gonna break it down to the 3 R's. Because platforms change, tactics change, influencers don't. What do I mean by that? Well, what do I mean? Mid-70s, creators began adopting super rugged, had scale. They never just go after professional baseball. So when they noticed this, they saw an opportunity to support. And so they signed their first, what eventually became many skate Stacy Peralta for $300 to sports market. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Gann. I'm a partner and chief social officer at Activism for a creative agency. I oversee influencer marketing campaigns, partner brands, and space since 2006 now. Brand integration done several thousands and made plenty of mistakes along the way, and hopefully we can avoid some the lessons in this presentation. So with that, let's dive in, and I want to start with a story. In March of 1966, brothers Paul and Duane moved into the retail space, open for business. The company was the Van Dorn Brothers. They made them in that store, sold them there, and that very first day of business they sold as well. What does this have to do with the influencer marketing world?
Fuck.
Relevance. What do I mean by that? Well, in the mid-70s, skaters began adopting cans, and the shoes were rugged, they had sticky soles, and Vans never could have afforded to go after relevance. What do I mean by that? Well, in the mid-70s, skaters began adopting. They saw an opportunity. Shoes were rugged, and so they signed their first. Vans never could have afforded to go after relevance. What do I mean by that? Well, in the mid-70s, skaters began adopting. They saw an opportunity. Shoes were rugged, and so they signed their first. Thousands. There's plenty of mistakes along the way. Influencer marketing. Well, when we think about influencer marketing, I think it oftentimes conjures up images of Instagram models hawking skinny teas, TikTokers, marketing products. When we think about influencer marketing, the latest platforms, the latest trends. Instagram models, that original storefront, TikTokers, marketing products. That's which is worth $11.5 platforms change, tactics change, influencers. And so they signed their first of what eventually became many And I like to break it down to 3 elements. One is know your consumer. What specifically is their age? What specifically are their interests? Who are their favorite athletes? And I like to break it down to 3. What are their hobbies? One is know your consumer. What do they watch? What specifically are they watching? Who are the creators that are their interests? From there, you want to talk about what are their hobbies that are relevant to their category? Within that, are you reaching a specific subcategory? Is there a way for this? Pitching ideas, or are you having to dangle an absurd amount of money at them to get a phone call return? If it's the latter, it's not worth it. So it's important to talk to them and identify whether or not they feel relevant, whether or not they feel passionate about phone call return. And it's the intersection of all those 3. That's where you find relevance. That's where you can identify. It's not about being product. Don't focus on. Million subscribers because they're relevant or because you're a star fucker. You know, you maybe saw them on a magazine cover or in a big ad week or ad age story. Now you think they're cool. Or do you want to work with an analyst or because you're a star hot topic in an ad week? You saw them on a magazine cover or a great example of this 12 years ago. We were working Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Dan. I'm the partner of Chief Safety Officer of Mechanism for March of 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren moved into this retail space, open for business. Their company was the Van Doren Brand Company. They sold shoes in Anaheim, California. And they made them in that store, sold them there in that very first day of business. What does this have to do with influencer marketing? Well, when we think about influencer marketing, I think it often comes to Instagram models, skinny teas, TikTokers, talking products, cool talent, emerging talent, the latest platforms, the latest trends. You know, I like to think back to that original storefront business, and Jordan Weber company, that became Vans, which is worth $11.5 billion. And they got to where they are today. Vans was built upon principles. So I'll show how they did it right, why it's still right today. Because platforms change, tactics change. What do I mean by that? What are they? of 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren moved into this retail space, open for business. Their company was the Van Doren Brothers. 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren. And they made them in that store, sold this retail space, open for business. Their company was the Van Doren Brothers. In that store, sold this retail space, open for business. Their company was the TikTokers, talking products, cool talent, emerging talent, the latest platform, the latest trend. You know, I like to think back to that original storefront, because that business was the Van Doren Rubber Company. That became Vans, which is worth $11.5 billion. And they got to where they are today through influencer marketing. Vans was built upon principles. So I'll show how they did it right, and why. Now, when I did my first YouTuber brand integration, done several thousand cents, made plenty of mistakes along the way, and hopefully we can avoid some. I did my first YouTuber brand integration, done several. With that, let's dive in and made plenty of mistakes along the way. Hopefully, March 1966, first all YouTuber brand integration, done several. With that, let's dive in. That became Vans, which is worth $11.5 billion today. And they got to where they are today through influencer marketing. Vans was built upon the timeless principle. That became Vans, which is worth $11.5 billion. They did it right. And they got to where they are today because platforms changed. Vans was built upon the timeless principle.